And in the Impact segment tonight, President Obama and faith. The president is a Christian and for years was pastored by Reverend Jeremiah Wright in Chicago at the Trinity United Church of Christ, a Protestant concern.
Well, Bill, the president's a committed Christian, and his faith is a really important part of his life. Every single morning for the last 6 years, he's woken up and read these devotionals to try to grow closer to God and closer to his neighbors as well. But he also practices his faith in other ways.
Talked about my Muslim faith.
2008, a German family fled to the U.S. after German authorities demanded that the devout Christian parents stop homeschooling their children, which is against the law there. Now they're hoping that they can make their case in front of the U.S. Supreme Court, which has ordered the Obama administration to respond to the German family's appeal as they fight deportation. Shannon Bream is live in Washington. Shannon, how did this case get to this point?
Well, Martha, the Romaikas are devout Christians. They were becoming very concerned about what their children were learning in school in their native country in Germany. Some things they say were directly in conflict with their faith. So they decided to homeschool the children, which is against the law in Germany. At one point, police actually showed up and took the children. Now, believing the U.S. would be the one place that would protect them, they fled here and applied for asylum. The first judge who saw them agreed and granted them permission and safety to stay here. Well, the Obama administration appealed that ruling and won. So, if the Supreme Court doesn't step in, this family is going to be forced to go back to Germany. In their brief, urging the justices to take up their case, they argue this, quote, "The express motive of Germany is to suppress parents' minority religious views. If human rights standards are applicable, then German homeschoolers are clearly entitled to asylum. The level of punishment is very harsh, permanent loss of custody of one's children." And Martha, that's the exact thing they don't want to have to face if they're sent home.
Wow, a fascinating case and a really powerful assertion there. So how's the administration responding, Shannon?
Well, all along, the argument from the administration has been that the Romaikas are not facing religious persecution, that they simply have a disagreement with Germany about its education policies. Well, in addition to the legal fight, supporters of the family started a petition on the White House website. It has gotten more than 127,000 signatures, and here's part of the White House's response. Quote, "To the extent that these petitions address a matter before the courts, we cannot issue a comment. But while we can't comment on this particular issue, we know that homeschooling can provide young people with the resources and attention they need to succeed academically. And we understand why their parents value this freedom." It's interesting to note that the administration also did not file any response to the family's petition to the Supreme Court. Now, we have to guess that at least some of the justices were concerned about that because the administration has been ordered by the Supreme Court to respond to that petition and explain why this family should be kicked out of the country. That response is due in a couple of weeks. After that, the justices will vote on whether or not to take up this appeal over what religious persecution really means.
Wow.
Martha?
Fascinating. Shannon, thank you very much. We'll see what happens. Thanks.
Yeah, well, you know, he does go to church as often as he can, but he also cultivates his faith in other ways. He leads with his relationship with Jesus and how
I've never heard him say the word Jesus.
Talked about my Muslim faith.
The U.S. Supreme Court has a message for the White House in the case of a family who came here from Germany over the issue of homeschooling. Correspondent Shannon Bream has an update for us tonight. Good evening, Shannon. Get us up to date on this case involving this family, and now this case is being considered by the Supreme Court.
It is. The family, they're named the Romaikas, and basically they're devout Christians. They were very worried about what they were seeing their kids were getting in public school in Germany. They said it was in direct conflict to their faith, so they decided to homeschool, which is illegal in Germany. Well, they ended up fleeing here to the U.S. because they thought this is the one country that's going to recognize our rights, religious freedom and faith, and rights as parents. They thought they'd be protected. They were granted asylum here in 2010, but the Obama administration decided to appeal that ruling, and the family ultimately lost. Their attorney told me today he's having a hard time understanding why this administration has done so much to stop arrests and deportations for illegal immigrants, but is actively trying to deport the Romaikas.
But the fact that we have room for 12 million but not room for one family just tells you there's something really amiss about this administration.
My Muslim faith.
By the way, Brett, this family could actually lose custody of their children if they're forced to go back to Germany and won't put them into school there.
So how's the administration responding?
Well, all along it is argued, and successfully I might add, that this family doesn't qualify. They're not part of a recognized social group that should be given asylum. And so that's how we've ended up now at the Supreme Court. And when their family attorney that we talked to there filed with the Supreme Court, the administration took the step of deciding not to file any type of response. So just days before the justices were scheduled to vote on whether or not to take up this case, the Supreme Court ordered this administration to file a response explaining the government's position on why this family should be deported. That response is due December 19th. So if the schedule holds, we could know in the next few weeks whether they get their day before the Supreme Court. It's their last resort.
Okay, Shannon, thank you. Well, there they are, the Romaikas, a German family, devout Christians. They say they're alarmed about what their children were learning in German schools, so they decided to come to the U.S. to homeschool them. It's illegal in Germany. But they were granted asylum here in 2010, but the Obama administration decided to appeal that ruling, and the family lost. The Romaikas could lose custody of their kids if they go back to Germany. Now it appears the U.S. Supreme Court is going to take up this case. And the Obama administration is saying they're not eligible for protection because homeschoolers are not recognized as a social group eligible for protection. We're back with the panel. Steve.
Well, it's a fascinating case. I think it's a testament to the power of homeschoolers here in the United States that they were able to raise this. And you saw the comments from Michael Ferris earlier in Shannon Bream's segment, to the point where we're now having a national discussion about this, and the Supreme Court is taking an interest in it. What's interesting to me is that the Supreme Court, by asking the administration for a response to make some kind of a judgment, as Shannon Bream explained, is essentially signaling that they're interested in the issue. Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to take it up, but they're signaling that they're interested in the issue and that they want to potentially weigh in on it in one way or another. So it's entirely possible that we'll see some sort of resolution of this in the coming weeks. It'd be interesting to see how the Obama administration would handle it diplomatically if the United States serves as, in a sense, a refuge from religious persecution in Germany, of all places.
Phyllis Gronsky writes in this question: isn't this the perfect example of religious persecution? Why must one belong to a group to be in consideration? Phyllis?
It's an interesting question, and I think that that's what this case explores, whether you do need to be part of a group or whether you can make this claim of religious persecution as an individual. You know, to get to Stephen's point about the Supreme Court, it is not unusual for the Supreme Court to ask the administration to weigh in on a case that the administration has not already weighed in on.
And they might not take the case.
And they may not take the case,
exactly.
But it is certainly an indication when they do ask the administration to weigh in on something, it is often an indication that it is something that they do want to take up and they want to know the administration's position before doing so.
Yeah. Tony Buckley writes in regarding the family: is there a winning argument, Charles, against the administration's position they're taking? And if so, what is it?
Well, I think the argument is a rather complicated one. It's an interesting one. And I think ultimately it's a question of whether a personal interpretation of your religion would be the grounds for giving you asylum on the grounds of persecution, or whether it has to be a widespread one. For example, if Germany had denied the family the ability to declare the godhood of Christ, there would be no question that would be a persecution of a Christian on the grounds of his religion. The question of whether or not the belief that the family has that to allow a child to go into public school is against the religion because of the corrupt way or any religious way that children are taught is clearly a minority view, a personal view. And I'm extremely sympathetic with that family, and I wish it weren't being, persecuted, having the threat of their children removed. But as a question of our principle of granting asylum, if the court takes it up, it's going to have to decide how widespread a belief has to be to actually be one that the United States would recognize persecution. Otherwise, there is a danger of a lot of personal interpretations which it would have to defend and become a huge magnet for asylum requests.
I mean, the lawyer is saying the administration has done a lot to stop arrests and deportations of illegal immigrants, but yet is actively trying to deport the
right. And the context, I think that Charles is exactly right. The context question actually works in two different ways. I mean, you could say on the scale of religious persecution, this is not as bad as, say, beheading.
Not as bad as, say, beheading.
My Muslim faith.
My Muslim faith.
But at the same time, 12 million illegals coming in. there's a double standard.
But those, I think, are different issues.
Yeah, the president's a committed Christian and is really careful about cultivating
Wait,
his
he's a
faith.
committed Christian? Say it again.
The president is a committed Christian.
The book is not just biblical passages.
Right.
You also have Emily Dickinson in there.
Yeah.
You have Anais Nin. You have Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan.
Why do you still do it? Why are you still out here?
Well, it goes back to the destiny thing. I mean, I made a bargain with it, you know, a long time ago, and I'm holding up my end.
What was your bargain?
To get where I am now.
Should I ask who you made the bargain with?
with the chief commander.
On this earth?
And this earth, and then in a world we can't see.
With the chief commander. On this earth? And this earth, and then in a world we can't see.
He is a serious Christian. I tried to find the sources of inspiration that meant something to the president, but hopefully they'll mean something to other people as well.
You know, fundamentally, we're all looking for higher meaning in life, and, you know, it's great that you're doing that for the president. It's
well,
amazing.
Thank you.